The following is our children's lesson for April 19th.
Salty. The kingdom of heaven will soon be here, brother. Turn back to God. Baptism is a sign that you intend to live for God, so be alert. Someone more powerful than me is going to come. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. The kingdom of... Huh?
This is my own dear son, and I am pleased with him.
God blesses those people who depend only on... Those people who grieve will find I know. There are too many people to hear me from the beach. Would you row me out a little so I could teach from there? God blesses those people who grieve. They will find comfort. God blesses those people who are humble. The earth will belong to them. God blesses those flooded, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Finally, it fell with a crash. Row your boat out into the deep water and let your nets down to catch some fish.
We've worked hard all night long and haven't got a thing, but if you tell me to, I'll let the nets down.
Don't be afraid. Follow me. And from now on, you will bring in people instead of fish.
That video was so awesome, wasn't it? Didn't you like that? It's incredible to watch Jesus begin his ministry. Next thing you know, he's calling people to follow him. And that's what he wants you and that's what he wants me to be doing. He wants all of us to be following him. And I hope that you are following him today. And that story that we are thinking about, especially at the end, is from Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. And actually, there's other versions of that account. But the version I hope that you and your family might read later is Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. And you'll see the story of Jesus calling Peter and John to follow him. All right. And so there's some things about Jesus that's so interesting. And these stories, all these stories are kind of similar in that people are afraid. Peter in that story is going to be afraid. There's people afraid of things they cannot see. What are you afraid of? There's all kinds of things to be afraid of. Last night there was a thunderstorm and it was dark and lightning and wind howling and I saw the branches moving around like crazy and the rain was coming down. It was scary, especially with the lightning. Yeah, it was not, yeah, I didn't like that at all. There's visible things we see all the time that are scary. And then there's other things, visible things like chocolate cake. I love chocolate cake. And so there's some things that are good we see, and there's some things that are bad we see. But either way, those things are temporary. And whether chocolate cake, I'm going to eat that. That's not going to last that much longer. And of course, a bad storm, those eventually go away. Those things we see are temporary. But what is not temporary are the things that are unseen, the invisible things. Paul will say this in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17. For our momentary light suffering is producing for us an eternal weight of glory far beyond all comparison, because we're not looking at what can be seen, but at what can be that cannot be seen. For what can be seen is temporary, but what can not be seen is eternal. And so what are we learning here is that God works, well, his work is invisible. What he does is invisible. You can't see it, but he's doing these amazing things with his love and with his power. He is with me and he's with you. You may not be able to see him right now, but he is with you. And his love for you is forever. His desire to bring you to heaven is forever. And that's good news. Let's play a little game and then we'll move to our next thing, okay? What do you see me doing here? Hmm. Am I eating? No. Am I riding a bicycle? No. What am I doing here? What? Yeah, I'm reading a Bible. That's exactly right. Now, you can see me reading a Bible, but what you cannot see is that God takes His truth, His Bible, and His invisible power helps me grow in my faith, helps me grow strong in my faith so I can make good decisions, so that I can become a strong, mature Christian who obeys Him, who follows Him, and who can help other people. Don't you want to be able to do that? Help other people, be a strong Christian? Well, God's invisible power helps those who read the Bible grow in their faith and become strong Christians. So you can see someone reading a Bible, but what you cannot see is that God is working when we're reading the Bible to grow our faith. Pretty cool, I know. One more. What am I doing here? Am I running a marathon? No. I'm praying. That's right. Yeah. Duh, I'm praying. And when I pray, and you can see me praying, what you can see is a person praying, but what you cannot see is that God hears those prayers. He hears those prayers, He hears them, and He answers them according to His will. And His will is good and His will is perfect. And He cares for you and He cares for me. So, yeah, when we are praying, you cannot see Him, but He's with us and He hears us and He answers them according to His good purpose. That's just who God is. He is awesome. All right. So now what I want you to do is watch the next video. And after that, there's some worksheets that you can work out and do with your family, and then talk about what maybe scares you, or talk about things that maybe are things that are make you worried in life. And know that the God who is powerful, the God who is eternal, the God that is invisible, He is with you, and He helps us overcome those things we worry about, those things that are scary, so that we can follow Him, so that we can be with Him. So go over those worksheets, talk about the lessons we had did or we watched on video, and then why don't you close out with a prayer with you and your family? Okay? Thank you. There is this reoccurring story of man and God throughout the whole Bible. God will call people to do some great thing, but too often people reject these invitations. They don't want to because, well, they are afraid. They are afraid and they just feel like maybe they're just not worthy. Maybe it seems impossible to follow God, or maybe it's just too big a price, or it's just too scary. People are too quick to say no to God. We see people in the Bible who were at times afraid. People like Abraham, he was afraid, and yet He was willing to offer his son on Mount Moriah to God, to honor God, to be obedient to him. We see other stories, people like Moses. Moses had to be convinced over and over again, reminded not to give up, not to be afraid. And God would say to him, I will provide the power. You just do your job. Now, we can't see God's power, but God's power is at work. And we see that in Moses' life. He will use his power to help Moses lead the people out of the promise, out of Egypt towards the promised land. And then we see other stories. People like Joshua, his story was hard because he had to replace Moses. How do you replace Moses, right? And yet God had to encourage Joshua because Joshua was afraid. And God had to say, Joshua, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. I will be with you wherever you go. Next thing you know, Joshua, by faith, is willing to follow God into the promised land, leading the people, even going around the city of Jericho, proving once again that people can overcome their fears, trusting in the God they cannot see because they know He is with them. We see other stories, incredible stories. We see the story, of course, of John the Baptist who said, I'm not worthy. I can't baptize you. But because John the Baptist is faithful, he baptizes Jesus. And then, of course, later on, Jesus will meet Peter, James, and John, and his other disciples. And again, they will struggle with fear. They struggle with fear, and yet, by faith, they're willing to follow Jesus. They're following him. Sometimes they have incredible fear in life, but because of their faith, them trusting in the God that we cannot see, trusting in his power, knowing that he's with them, they were able to do amazing things like walk on water. Imagine what God can do with you in your life. The God we cannot see offers his power to us, not so that we can necessarily walk on water, but so that we can be faithful to him, so that we can follow him each and every day to be faithful and obedient to him.